Once upon a time, in a distant land known for its towering mountains and tranquil valleys, there existed a kingdom where peace and prosperity had reigned for centuries. The people of this kingdom were known for their wisdom and compassion, living in harmony with nature and one another. At the heart of this kingdom stood a grand monastery, where monks dedicated their lives to the study and practice of the ancient teachings of the Buddha. Among these monks was a young novice named Ananda. From a very early age, Ananda was fascinated by the mysteries of life. He would often sit by the river, watching the water flow, and ponder the nature of existence. Despite his youth, Ananda possessed a deep yearning to understand the world around him and the forces that shaped it. One day, as Ananda was walking through the forest near the monastery, he stumbled upon an old, gnarled tree. The tree was ancient, its branches twisted and its bark scarred by the elements. Yet, despite its appearance, the tree was full of life, with vibrant green leaves and fruit hanging from its branches. Ananda felt a deep connection to the tree, sensing that it held some profound secret. Curious, Ananda sat beneath the tree and entered a deep meditation. As he meditated, the world around him began to fade away, and he found himself in a vast, empty space. In this space, he saw a series of images unfolding before him, scenes of birth and death, joy and sorrow, creation and destruction. He watched as one event led to another in an endless chain, with each action giving rise to a new reaction. As he continued to observe, Ananda realized that nothing existed in isolation. Every event, every moment, was intricately connected to the next. He saw that the tree before him had grown strong and old because it was nourished by the soil, the sun, and the rain. He understood that the soil was rich because of the countless leaves and branches that had fallen and decayed over the years, providing nutrients for new growth. The sun and rain, too, were part of a larger cycle, governed by the movements of the heavens and the forces of nature. Ananda's vision deepened, and he began to see the same pattern in all aspects of life. He saw that the happiness of the people in his kingdom was not the result of any single action but a complex web of relationships and events. The farmers who grew the food were supported by the laborers who tilled the soil, and the craftsmen who made the tools were dependent on the resources provided by the land. The prosperity of the kingdom was a result of this interconnectedness, a delicate balance that required each person to play their part. As Ananda emerged from his meditation, he felt a profound sense of peace and understanding. He realized that the key to true wisdom lay in recognizing the interdependence of all things. Just as the tree relied on the elements to survive, so too did every being rely on one another. This realization brought him closer to the teachings of the Buddha, who had spoken of dependent origination, the idea that nothing arises or exists independently, but is instead the result of countless causes and conditions. With this newfound understanding, Ananda dedicated himself to sharing this wisdom with others. He traveled throughout the kingdom, teaching the people about the interconnected nature of life. He explained that just as the river's flow was determined by the mountains and the rain, so too were their lives shaped by the actions and choices of those around them. Ananda taught them that by cultivating compassion and understanding, they could create a ripple effect that would benefit not only themselves but the entire kingdom. The people listened to Ananda's teachings and began to see the world in a new light. They became more mindful of their actions, knowing that even the smallest deed could have far-reaching consequences. They began to work together more closely, supporting one another and recognizing the value of each person's contribution to the greater whole. Over time, the kingdom flourished even more than before. The bonds between its people grew stronger, and their sense of unity deepened. They learned to appreciate the interconnectedness of all life, and this awareness brought them greater happiness and peace. As Ananda grew older, he continued to share his wisdom, never forgetting the lessons he had learned beneath the ancient tree. He understood that the tree itself was a perfect example of dependent origination, a living testament to the truth that all things are connected, and that nothing exists in isolation. And so, the kingdom thrived, guided by the timeless teachings of interdependence and compassion. Ananda's legacy lived on, not only in the minds of the people but in the very fabric of the world around them. The story of the ancient tree and the young monk became a cherished tale, passed down through generations, reminding everyone of the profound truth that lies at the heart of existence, that we are all part of a vast, interconnected web of life, and that by understanding and honoring this connection, we can create a world of harmony, peace, and enduring prosperity. We've noticed that our loyal viewers, whether you are practicing Buddhists or simply enthusiasts eager to explore new perspectives on science and the universe, have shown a deep interest in this topic. No matter your background, this video is something you definitely shouldn't miss. Today, we will delve into the concept of dependent origination, one of the most fundamental teachings of the Buddha. This doctrine not only reveals profound truths about human existence, life, and the pursuit of happiness, but also serves as a point of convergence between Buddhism and various scientific disciplines. Through this meeting of minds, both realms have reaped substantial benefits. Dependent origination in daily life. Let's begin by looking at how dependent origination manifests in our daily lives. Consider the classic tale of Journey to the West, where the demons are blinded by the belief that consuming the flesh of the monk Xuanzang would grant them immortality. They devised countless schemes to capture the monk, driven by their desperate desire to live forever, youthful and indestructible. This story illustrates a deep-rooted human delusion, the attachment to the self, both physical and mental, and the false belief in its eternal existence. Despite all efforts, no one, not even the Buddha himself, can defy the natural law of impermanence. By understanding dependent origination, we begin to see through such delusions and recognize the truth. The law of dependent origination. The law of dependent origination is succinctly recorded in the scriptures as follows: if this exists, that comes to be; if this arises, that arises. If this does not exist, that does not come to be; if this ceases, that ceases. This principle can be easily observed in nature. For example, because clouds gather, rain falls; because it rains, the road becomes slippery; because the road is slippery, someone might fall, and because that person falls, they may get injured. Here, the rain is due to the clouds, the slippery road is due to the rain, and the injury is due to the fall. These events unfold in a sequence of causes and effects, all initiated by the presence of clouds. Conversely, if we ask what causes the clouds, we learn it is the condensation of water vapor, which in turn is caused by the evaporation of water due to heat. The chain of causes is endless, and each event is linked to a prior cause, demonstrating the interconnectedness of all things. Scientific perspective on dependent origination. To further grasp the essence of dependent origination, let's consider a famous scientific example, the concept of quantum entanglement. This phenomenon was first proposed in a thought experiment by Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen in 1935, known as the EPR paradox, to challenge the completeness of quantum mechanics. Imagine a particle that spontaneously decays into two photons, A and B. According to the law of symmetry, these photons will always move in opposite directions. If A goes west, B will go east. This seems straightforward until we consider the peculiar nature of quantum mechanics. Before measurement, these photons exist in a state of superposition, meaning they have no definite position or momentum. It's only when one photon, say A, is measured that its position is determined, which instantaneously influences B, no matter the distance between them. Einstein was skeptical, suggesting there must be some hidden variables or a faster-than-light communication between the photons. However, experiments conducted in the 1980s, particularly by Alain Aspect and his team in Paris, confirmed that photon B reacts instantaneously to changes in photon A, even when separated by vast distances. This interaction defies classical notions of locality and suggests that the two photons are not independent entities but part of a single, indivisible reality, a concept remarkably similar to dependent origination in Buddhism. The Buddhist view of reality. Buddhism views the world as a vast, interconnected flow of events and phenomena, each influencing and being influenced by others. Our perception of this flow is often fragmented, leading us to believe in the existence of separate, independent entities. This illusion of separateness gives rise to attachment, suffering, and the endless cycle of birth and death. The Buddha's teaching of dependent origination challenges this view by asserting that nothing exists independently, everything is the result of causes and conditions. This insight laid the foundation for a revolutionary perspective in philosophy, refuting the Brahmanical idea of a supreme creator deity and instead emphasizing that all beings are the architects of their own destiny. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are non-self, anatta, and impermanent, anicca. Every event, from the motion of planets to the falling of a leaf, arises and ceases due to a web of conditions. Dependent origination was the first philosophical system to challenge the idea of a permanent, unchanging self, advocating instead for a view of reality where everything is in constant flux. This teaching not only dismantled the prevailing religious dogmas of the Buddha's time but also asserted the individual's role in shaping their own life and experiences. Einstein's perspective on Buddhism, more than 2,500 years later, the great scientist Albert Einstein remarked that if there is any religion that could cope with the demands of modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism. Unlike other religions, Buddhism does not need to abandon its core principles to align with scientific discoveries, rather, it encompasses and transcends them. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha taught that by completely eradicating ignorance and craving, one can bring about the cessation of suffering and the cycle of birth and death. This teaching of dependent origination empowers individuals to take control of their own lives, to see through the illusions that bind them to suffering, and to walk the path toward liberation. Living in accordance with dependent origination, for lay Buddhists, living according to the principle of dependent origination means understanding the impermanent and interdependent nature of all things. It encourages us to accept the inevitable changes in our lives, such as aging, illness, and death, with calmness and clarity. Recognizing the interconnectedness of all life helps us to develop compassion, avoid harmful actions, and contribute positively to the well-being of others and society as a whole. Moreover, dependent origination offers profound comfort and wisdom to those facing life's greatest challenges, such as terminal illness or old age. By understanding the impermanent nature of the body and mind, we can face pain, suffering, and even death with equanimity. This insight not only helps us navigate personal hardships but also enables us to see through the false divisions that cause social strife, such as classism, racism, and war. The social implications of dependent origination. The doctrine of dependent origination also has significant implications for our understanding of social relationships. When we grasp that our existence is intertwined with countless other beings and conditions, we begin to see that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. This awareness fosters a sense of responsibility, urging us to contribute to the common good rather than focusing solely on personal gain. Every success and failure in society is the result of collective effort, and each individual's actions have far-reaching consequences. By adopting a view informed by dependent origination, we can cultivate a more harmonious and compassionate society. As Buddhists, we are called to engage in right action, right speech, and right livelihood, understanding that our choices reverberate through the web of life, affecting countless beings. The path to liberation. Finally, the teaching of dependent origination guides us on the path to liberation. By seeing the true nature of reality, impermanent, interdependent, and without a permanent self, we can let go of our attachments and aversions, leading to a life of greater peace and freedom. The Buddha's realization of dependent origination was key to his enlightenment, and it remains a central teaching for all who seek to end the cycle of suffering. In conclusion, dependent origination is not just a philosophical concept but a practical guide for living a life of wisdom, compassion, and liberation. It shows us the interconnectedness of all things and helps us to navigate the complexities of life with clarity and purpose. As we continue to explore this profound teaching, may we all come to realize the truth of dependent origination and walk the path toward true happiness and freedom.